Hi everyone, welcome here. My name is O-Sheena. On my channel lately I've been talking a lot about romance books and why I read romance and just giving different perspectives on content in romance books and how I, as a Christian single woman, navigate reading romance. And I thought that I would actually make a whole video just about this topic, and it's kind of in a response to a comment that I got on one of my last videos. I forget which video it was. It might have been my contemporary romance reading vlog, where I was talking about spice in books, and there's a lot of like secular romance books that just have a lot of spice in them, and the comment was basically asking like, why do you even read secular romance if you know there's going to be spice in it? Like, why don't you just read Christian romance and then you always know that there won't be spice in there? And I was like, that's a really good point. You ask a good question, and I wanted to answer it here in this video and kind of talk a little bit about my history with reading romance and my perspective on it. And this is just like my own personal conviction and what I feel is right for me. And I thought I would share it with you. Some of you might feel differently than what I'm about to share, but I just feel like this is right for me right now. And I hope that you can like trust that I have real life people that are speaking into my life, and I'm listening to the Holy Spirit and trying to make the best decisions for myself. So I thought I would just share my experience. So again, my experience. You do not have to feel the same way that I do, and you may disagree with me, and that's okay. Let's just have an open discussion about this. I'm open to hearing other perspectives. I know that it's different if you are of a certain age, if you are married or not, if you have kids, what your previous experience has been physically. I know that so many things impact the things that trigger us and the things that aren't healthy for us to be consuming. So I know that I am just like one perspective. But anyways, I wanted to preface that because I don't want to offend anyone or make them think that you have to feel the same way that I do. So this is basically why I read secular romance and why I still feel like it is something that I am able to read. So where I started is actually with secular romance. So when I was like 12 to 14 age range, I discovered the romance section of my library. I was like, oh yeah, I want to read a romance story, because I kind of had finished with the Babysitters Club and there was nothing else for me to read that I was interested in. And so I went to the romance section. And it wasn't until getting out of high school that I really felt I needed to find other books to be reading. And I found Twilight, and I've actually made a video about this, kind of like about books that I read that were steamy, and I can link that video down below. I list quite a few popular books that I attempted to read, and I had to either DNF or I did read the whole thing. So I knew that steamy romance was not what I wanted to read anymore, and that's when I like started really exclusively reading Christian fiction and young adult fiction. Before young adult started turning into more new adult content level, young adult was a great place to go for romance books in the contemporary space, because you guys know I love contemporary fiction, but adult contemporary fiction is very graphic and has a lot of things in it that I don't want to read. So I had to stick with young adult. So I was doing that. And then every once in a while, I would try an author I'd never heard of, or try an author that I heard wrote clean books, and they were completely secular, and it would really work out. I would find favorites, and I want to share some of those favorites because they kind of like are my inspiration to continue to try to find these kinds of books, because there are some secular books out there that are clean and really good. One of the main ones is Katherine. I read Happiness for Beginners for the first time. This was my first book by her, and it does have a very detailed makeout scene on a bed between the two characters pretty early in, and it definitely deterred me. I almost DNF'd it from that, but I kept going, and there's nothing else in the book. So honestly, if that wasn't there, this could be 5 stars and like amazing. I gave it 4 stars because of that scene, because it was like too much for me. But if you just like skipped a couple paragraphs, it would be over and then you wouldn't have to worry about it ever again. So, but I really loved her storytelling. I loved her characters, and I was like, whoa, okay, interesting. And because it was like closed door or clean, I was like, maybe the rest of her books will be too. And so far they have been. Like, there's certain details that I have to like kind of look past, but overall, I have loved her writing, loved her characters. And so Katherine Center's a main one. And then Sarah Adams too. I read the cheat sheet. This was my first book by her and absolutely loved it. This is completely closed door, really funny. And so I'm like, I'm glad that I gave it a chance because I've loved this book. And I just feel like if I was paging myself into Christian fiction, I wouldn't have discovered some of these amazing authors. And then you guys know, Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Absolutely love this book. This one has very light language, but some like violence and gore a little bit, and like a lot of like implied innuendos, but in kind of like a funny bantery way, and it is clean. So I'm so glad that I read this because again, this is a favorite. And if I had not allowed myself to read anything but Christian fiction, I wouldn't have discovered this book. Another one is thrillers, and in particular Sally Hepworth. I just randomly picked up The Good Sister because the title intrigued me, and I loved this book as well. And this is closed door. This is, you know, clean in that sense. There is some language in it, and like they talk about it, but it's closed door. I loved it. And if I, once again, had only been reading Christian fiction, I wouldn't have discovered this author. So there's books like that where I'm like, I'm glad that I don't read only Christian fiction because there's so many other options out there that are still good that you can read as a Christian and still feel like safe in your convictions. That is one main reason why I want to continue to read secular fiction, because I find books like this that I love. Plus, in the secular space, there's actually a lot of clean authors out there that have promised to only write clean romance. So I don't know about this author about writing clean romance, but Sariah Wilson is a clean romance writer. Friend Zone is my favorite one by her. It's makeouts in it, but they don't go any farther than that, and I appreciate it, and it's clean enough for me. And then Emma St. Clair, she is a classic. She has so many books. I'm currently reading Falling for Your Enemy, but again, she has promised that she will always write clean fiction, no language, only kissing. I love that, and there's no faith content, but it is still clean and it's romance. Same with Annah Conwell. I just read The First Taste, and I really enjoyed this. Totally clean, no language, but they do kiss, and that's okay. And I really am happy to have discovered her. And then you guys know I've been really into Jenny Proctor lately too, and she again is a clean romance writer that will not put language or more than kissing in her books. So I feel like there is a lot of like secular options out there, and I want to continue to find them so that I can share them on my channel. And then sometimes our Christian authors that we love start writing in just the kind of clean general space. So Becky Wade has kind of lessened the amount of faith content in her books. This is Memory Lane. It's the start of a self-published series that she's doing, a Sons of Scandal series. And there is some faith content, but not as much as her traditionally published books. So with Courtney Walsh, she is writing like mainly just like clean fiction, clean romance, not much faith content. This book doesn't have any faith content. I don't even know if she's writing any more like faith-based books. I think they're all just clean now. People are loving her books and they're totally clean, but still like so good. Sometimes there's going to be authors that kind of change their direction, and I want to follow them. I want to see what the options are out there that aren't just like the faith-based kind. Because that kind of leads me into like why I wouldn't want to just stick with Christian fiction. And the stereotypes are sometimes true. They're there for a reason. Sometimes the writing and the storylines aren't as good as the secular ones. And sometimes it's just so cheesy. And you don't want to read cheesy. You want to read like deep and emotional and like a strong connection, and not just kind of surface level, light and fluffy. A lot of Christian romance is that. And there's a time and place for that. And I do love a lot of those fluffy, cheesy romance books in the Christian space. But sometimes I want to read something with more depth, and there are clean options that have the depth and have the like level of writing that I want to see. And then lastly, I read secular romance books so that I can warn readers if they're spicy or not. And a lot of the time I can share about levels of content that maybe not everyone thinks to share, but I try to be as like detailed as possible without giving spoilers of the level of content that is in a book to see if you want to read it. So because personally I find it so helpful. Like I wish more people gave detailed reviews of the type of content without giving spoilers. As much as like I'm doing this, I'm like making YouTube videos for fun and just to share what I'm reading, it's also kind of become a resource for my followers, and I want it to continue to be that. And for it to be useful, I need to give detailed reviews of the kind of books that I read and the content that is in them. Happy to do that. I really want to do that. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully you can tell, like, I'm trying to be really mature about this and I don't want to put blinders on, but I'm also, you know, okay with experimenting and trying things out, and if it doesn't work, I won't do it, but I want to try, you know? And so that is kind of my explanation for why I read secular fiction and secular romance. And again, there's so many good options out there. If I only read Christian romance, I just would like limit how many books even come out each year that I could read. Because you guys know, I strongly prefer contemporary romance. I don't like historical romance for the most part. And a lot of Christian fiction is historical set or dual timeline. And I'm just not interested in those books as much as the contemporary ones. So I would have way less options to read each year. So I need to read secular fiction, but still find the quality out there, so that I can keep reading and keep enjoying my hobby too. So I think I covered everything that I had written down that I wanted to say. So yeah, I would be curious to hear you guys' thoughts, and did I make sense? I don't know. Hopefully that just like kind of gives you kind of a clarity to what I'm doing here and what my reading taste is and why I read how I read. So I appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate you following me on this journey, and I will continue to share the best that I can with wherever I feel God is leading me in my reading, because he definitely does. Like I definitely hear from him when I should or should not read a book. I feel the conviction in my heart and my mind, so I'm always listening to that and always kind of seeing where I need to put a book down or pick up a book and give it a try. And I found so many favorites from doing that. So yeah, okay, thank you for watching, you guys. I think that's everything, and I will see you in my next video. Bye. I think maybe like 12, 11, 13. Wait, what? 12, 13, 14, 11. No, that was a little young. More so like 13, 14, 15. Who cares? Okay. So more so like 12, 11, 13. Why do I keep saying 12, 11? It's fine.